troublemaker. I've been a late-night player. I've been broke as a joke. I've been a money maker. I've been a record breaker, taking credit as an educator. I've been known to spit the flows and make a shaky, shaky thing. Popping, locking, stopping, let it hang. Watch us as we drop this hip-hop, it's like it stings. We make a whole room drop and everybody sing. We want the funk. We gotta have that funk. We kick it old school, we think we're so cool. We take it back to the past, we gonna act a fool. Up jumps the middle finger, make my Jaeger just a little.
Hello and welcome to Sports Buzz, a Fanatical View. I am your host, Scott D. Lewis, here live in studio, Comcast Cable Channel 23, downtown Danbury, Connecticut, on this April 19th. April zipping by, spring zipping by without any spring weather. Where is it? April showers, May flowers, but a little sunshine wouldn't hurt anybody, I do not think. Another relatively miserable, dreary day out there as we continue to deal with remnants of the long winter and hope for a warmer spring into summer. Although we did have some nice weather Friday and Saturday, I will say that much. It was pretty good those 2 days. A brief, very brief respite as it was bitter, freezing cold on Sunday once again. Anyways, enough with the weather. You all know what it is because you go outside just as much as I do, I'm sure. So why am I telling you what you already know? I feel like a man on an island today. I don't know. My man Bob is on vacation, so we knew he wasn't going to be here this week. He might call in. You know Bob with his call from wherever he is, including hospital beds. But my director extraordinaire, Mr. Mike Toohey, has not shown up as of yet. So is he here? He is here. All right. Well, at least we know that's good. But, well, let me just thank Candy, though indispensable Candy, for starting the show for us while we were waiting for Mike to show up. So, all right, everything is right with the world, I think, on some certain level, as my director has arrived. His show, of course, Expose Cinema, Friday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 1. Bob's show, Spotlight On, Tuesday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 12. The number you see there, 203-792-4101. As I mentioned, maybe, I don't think so, Bob will be calling. Or maybe we'll get another strange man call. He's been hot on the line recently. I know he's hot on the Bruins and the Celtics as their playoffs have gotten underway. And mostly good, although the Bruins are set for a big, huge game tonight, which could really make or break the stress level of Boston sports fans, you know, with the way things go in Toronto this evening. It's Bruins at Leafs. It's game 4 after getting the extra day off last night. Everybody else mostly has been playing every other day. They started every other day for the first 3 games, but they did get 2 days off between game 3 and 4, and they will be back in action tonight. 8 o'clock, I believe, is when they drop the puck up there in Air Canada Center, Toronto. And it's going to be the Bruins trying to get back on the winning track. They opened with a beatdown in Boston, the hub of hockey, this past weekend. 7-2 and 5-1 were the scores in game 1 and 2. Pasternak actually was 7-3, I believe, in that game 2. Pasternak had a 6-point game, the young player. They've got a bunch of young players on this team. Charlie McAvoy, is one of them, and Pasternak, another one. Tyler Krug, another one. They got plenty of young kids, and it was Pasternak with the 6-point game in the 7-3 beatdown of Toronto in game 2. Marchand had a big game in game 1 in that 5-1 beatdown. At one point in game 2, they were shooting 50%, which is unheard of in a hockey game. They really just were playing as efficient as you could get. Also, good defense, good goaltending. But in game 3, as they went up to Toronto, late in the first period, the momentum of the series changed, and it changed, you guessed it, by a bad call by the officials. Really just a terrible blown call on a delay of game penalty, as they said. Is that the phone ringing? All right, let's get right into the phones. See who it is. Hello, this is Sports.
Hey, Mr. Scott.
Well, speak of the devil, it is Mr. Bob Robb Jr., my right-hand man. How you doing there, Vacation Bob?
I am doing well, and yourself?
Not too bad. We had a little bit of a tricky start to the show as it was Candy on deck directing as Mr. Tui was running a little late and I was a man on an island. But I am no longer, as my right-hand man is now on the phone. Tui is here directing. I still hear Candy helping out, so everything's good. But how's vacation treating you there, Bob?
It's treating me well. We're having a good time.
You getting any better weather than we are? Or are you guys in Pennsylvania?
No, not really.
I wouldn't
We
imagine.
had one good day of sunny weather, and it's been kind of iffy today. It's been rainy off and on.
How was Hershey Park?
Hershey Park was great. You know, we had a great time.
That's fantastic.
Didn't get any minor league baseball in, unfortunately, because the weather's been so.
Right, I wouldn't think that you would have done that. I'm, my social media these days activity is at an all-time low. I'm barely there, so I haven't seen if you've been posting any pictures from the trip yet. I know a lot of times you post them when you get back, anyways. But I'll try to find those eventually. But I'm just not on that much. Computer difficulties and the whole bit, and who needs social media, anyways? But so you want to talk sports? I was talking hockey at the top of the show. You going to stick around on the line? What's the deal?
I'll stick around the line.
All right, we got Bob on the line for the show. I was talking about the Bruins. I was talking about Game 3, how they got jobbed by the officials, changed the momentum of the series with that blown delay of game penalty.
How bad that was. Oof.
I mean, it's not a subjective call. It's either did the puck go out of the ice without a deflection off the glass or a player, or did it not? And it did not. It went off the glass. It was clear as day to everybody in the building. The referee was right in front of the play looking right at it. And they all come together in a group and talk about it, and they guessed because they did not know, and they give the Bruins a penalty. 7 seconds later, Toronto's on the board for a 1-0 lead, and it could have been 0-0 going into the second period with the pressure mounting on the Leafs as they were down 2-0, getting blown out in those first two games. Instead, they get that one-goal lead at the end of the first period. The Bruins tie it. Toronto goes back up 2-1. The Bruins tie it again, and then Toronto gets the go-ahead goal and then the late goal of beauty to win it 4-2 in Game 3 and get back in the series. But it's just a disgrace when a game is compromised so badly by the officials in a game like that, Bob.
I know.
It can't be done. It really can't be allowed. I don't know why, with all the other reviews they see in the game, why that wouldn't be reviewed. Like I said, it's not a subjective call, whether it's a penalty where the guy thinks it's a check or a trip or whatever. This is just a simple call. Did it get deflected out or not? So they should be able to review that. I don't know why they don't. Either way, Toronto's back in the series now. I still liked the way the Bruins played in that game, despite the adversity, and I like this team overall and what they've done this season. So I expect them to play well tonight. We know in hockey it doesn't necessarily mean you will win if you play well, because the puck can bounce any way. But it's a big game tonight for sure, as the Bruins would love to come back home for Game 5 up 3-1 instead of being tied 2-2 with the pressure mounting.
Right. My best thing is Vegas.
How about that? We had two sweeps. Yeah, we've got
4 straight wins
over the Kings and the Connecticut Kid, Jonathan Quick. Vegas swept them 1-0, 2-1 in double overtime in Game 2, 3-2, and 1-0. So every game was a one-goal game. Every game was tight. Welcome to the NHL, Vegas, in your first ever season. You what they have? They were like top 2, top 3 overall teams in the league all year. Definitely, they were the number 2 seed out west. And then in their first ever series, they get a sweep over the Kings, who are no strangers to winning Stanley Cups.
No.
Super impressive. The other sweep took place out west as well, as the San Jose Sharks knocked out their California rival, Anaheim. The scores there, 2-1, 8-1 in Game 2, 3-2, and 3-0 to finish it out, as the Sharks advance and move on to round 2 as well. Back in the East, how about the Devils, Bob? They had a big game like the
Devils. They're just losing it. I mean, I can't believe Tampa Bay is up 3-1.
Tampa is a good team. They were the number 1 seed in the East for a reason. The Devils did what the Toronto Maple Leafs did, getting a big win at home in Game 3 after losing the first 2. Let's see, what were the scores in that? 5-3, 5-2 in Tampa in games 1 and 2. So they gave up 5 goals in both those first 2 games. They came back home and won 5-2 in game 3, but it was 3-1 in game 4. So they head back to Tampa down 3-1. You can't be feeling too confident about the Devils right now, can you?
But anything can happen in hockey, unfortunately, like any other sport.
Yes, and in hockey, we've seen more 3-1 and even 3-0 comebacks than in any of the other sports, I do believe. So it can happen, but Tampa, as we mentioned, is playing great. They played well all year. They will probably play well and finish this thing out in 5. If the Devils can get the win, though, you get Game 6 at home, steal that, and all of a sudden the pressure's on Tampa Bay in Game 7 at home. So the recipe is there. You go down, steal Game 5, then you got the home ice for Game 6. Then the pressure really is on the team that blew the lead in Game 7. So, it could happen. Back in the East as well tonight, you've got the Capitals. How about this series, Bob? Overtime, double overtime, and overtime.
Yeah.
The first 2 games.
I watched a double overtime game. That was a very tight game.
Man, when they get to overtime in the Stanley Cup, there's like no timeouts, no commercial breaks. It's just 20 minutes of back and forth action. They went to double overtime. But how about the fact that the road team has won all 3 games in overtime? As Columbus came from behind down 2-0 in both those games, 1 and 2 in Washington, and they forced overtime and won in overtime in both those games, and then clinging to life, trying to get back in the series, the Capitals go double overtime in Game 3 in Columbus. So what will happen tonight in Game 4? They also, like the Bruins, got the extra day off in between Game 3 and 4. The Penguins, what a crazy series. Not really, I guess, but they are just 7-0. They win Game 1. They lose Game 2, 5-1. Then they come back 5-1 and 5-0 in Philly to go up 3-1 on the Flyers. And in the regular season, Bob, Pittsburgh scored 5 goals or more in every game against Philly throughout the season. So I do not think the Flyers are going to be resisting much to the Penguins' offense, and it looks like they will go down against their in-state rival. I think that's out west. Nashtown, down to Clown in Nashtown. Avalanche did what Toronto did what the Devils did. Got a win in Game 3 back at home after losing the first 2, but Nashville came back and won Game 4, so they are up 3-1 coming back home. The Jets, Winnipeg, up 3-1 on the Wild in the West as well. I wanted to mention before we're going to switch to the NBA and then we'll get to baseball. I did want to mention the Boston Marathon took place on Monday. I was going to do that at the top of the show, but we jumped right into hockey. And for the first time since 1985, Bob, Desiree Linden, an American woman, won the Boston Marathon. It's been, 33 years since an American woman won.
That's cool.
And how about this? An American woman also finished second, and 7 out of the top 10 finishers were American women. What is with the Americans at the Boston Marathon this year? Pretty impressive. She got it done at 2 hours, 39 minutes, and 53 seconds. It was not one of the faster times you'll ever see. The weather conditions were brutal. They actually had to cancel the baseball game that usually is played on the Patriots Day up there in Fenway. Did not get that in with the just torrential mix of rain, sleet, snow, freezing rain, whatever it was, Sunday night into Monday into the marathon.
We had snow here.
Did you have snow there too, huh?
We did have snow.
I don't know I can't, I've seen the rain, the snow, the mix of snow and rain. I give up on the whole thing. I don't know what's going on. And then a Japanese male won in the male side, first time since 1987. Japanese runner won it. So a couple long-time droughts have been ended in the Boston Marathon. I did want to mention that before we jump to the NBA playoffs, the association, as it were. How about those depleted, counted out, they're never going to win in the playoffs with all the injuries, Boston Celtics, Bob?
2-0.
You see where they're at? 2-0 up against Milwaukee, the Bucks. The Celtics 113-107 in overtime in Game 1.
The overtime game was great.
Yeah, how about the back-to-back three-point daggers? Terry Rozier breaking ankles with 0.5 seconds left against the Bucks with a crossover, jab step back three-pointer that looked to be the game winner with 0.5 of a second. But Milwaukee on the inbound gets a nearly half-court heave to tie it and force overtime. And the Celtics, with all the injuries, with everybody counting them out, still managed to hold on for that 113-107 overtime victory in Game 1. 120 in a walk-away 106 rout in Game 2 as they had 6 players in double figures in Game 2. And in Game 1, they had Horford, Morris, Brown, Tatum, all going for 20+. So they are spreading the wealth. I don't know why people have counted them out, Bob. They've been plagued by injuries the entire season, and they played themselves into the number 2 seed anyways.
Right.
So it's not like this is a new thing to them. You know, Kyrie Irving missed a good, about 10 games in the midseason just after Christmas. Hayward's been out all year. Marcus Smart has been out the last, 3 weeks or so of the regular season, but he also missed games early. Morris, who we mentioned had 20+ in both these games, he has missed around 20 games throughout the season. Horford has been out at times. They have had injuries throughout the entire season, but they are well coached by Brad Stevens, future president of the United States, Brad Stevens, and he just knows what he's doing. They run a great offensive set, and they are one of the top defensive teams in the league. They spread the wealth. They get it done. He plays these young guys. He doesn't care if Jaylen Brown is in his second year or Jason Tatum's in his first year. These guys are getting huge minutes. They've been getting huge minutes. And the Bucks are down 2-0. And how about the bad blood? An honest mistake, Bob. Did you see what happened in the press conferences after Game 1 and Game 2?
No, I did not.
Terry Rozier, innocently enough, he's in Boston territory, called Eric Bledsoe Drew Bledsoe. He was praising the player Bledsoe while he was doing it, and it was a slip of the tongue. He called him Drew Bledsoe while praising him. Eric Bledsoe did not take kindly to that, and after Game 2, where he got torched again by Rozier, they asked him what he needs to do about Terry Rozier and how he's going to slow him down, and he said, "Who the bleep is that? I don't even know who that is." So he obviously was not amused by the Drew Bledsoe slip of the tongue by Terry Rozier after Game 1. All right, other NBA action. Toronto is up 2-0 on the Wizards. The Cavaliers got a bounce back, barely took 48 points from Bron. It took 2 quick fouls on one of the star players from Indiana. It took the refs getting involved, and it took a miss by Oladipo late in the game for a three-pointer, which would have tied it. But the Cavs back 1-1 with Indiana. Philly is 1-1 with Miami.
Speaking of Philly,
yeah,
we went that by the training camp.
Oh, did you? What for? Where? Their baseball, football, what?
No, for Sixers.
Oh, for the Sixers, really?
Yeah.
Well, Sixers got a dose of reality after their high-flying win where they scored 130 points in Game 1 against Miami. They lost Game 2, and they head to Miami tied 1-1. So the things are tight right there. Out west, not as many tight series. Houston up 2-0 against the T-Wolves. Warriors up 2-0 against the Spurs. The Spurs have been dealing with the drama with Kyrie, with Kawhi, and Greg Popovich, and now the terrible news that Greg Popovich's wife passed away yesterday, and he will not be coaching the team tonight. That was very disappointing and sad to hear, of course. So that doesn't look good for the Spurs. Pelicans, wow, we talked about Emeka Okafor, the former Husky, helping New Orleans.
We have.
But we did not talk about the fact that Shabazz Napier has been helping Portland as well, but now he's going to help them out even more as New Orleans took games 1 and 2 in Portland, the Rose Garden. So Portland heads to New Orleans down 2-0. Tough hill to climb for them. OKC lost last night as the Jazz stole Game 2 in Oklahoma City. They head home with a split. So that's the series, and that's what's going on. It's Sixers Heat, Blazers, New Orleans, and Warriors, Spurs tonight for the NBA action. If you're looking to see what's going on with all that tonight, Celtics get an extra day of rest before they take place with their action tomorrow. How about some baseball, Bob? Big win for your Mets last night.
Oh, yes. Our Mets and our Red Sox are doing very well.
How'd you feel after that first game of the Nats series? Did you go into panic mode when they blew a 6-0 lead in the 8th inning against the Nets?
I didn't go into panic mode, but it was very nice to see them, do what they're doing their job. They're getting things done.
Well, they bounced back and they turned the tables on the Nats. It was 6-0 in the first game of the series, and it looked like the Mets were going to continue to roll, but stunned they were, and they lost that game 8-6, and then they lost game 2 to the Nats in that series as well. But they bounced back with a 9-run 8th inning last night of their own to turn the tables on the Nats, with a grand slam to cap it off by Cespedes, I believe it was, to move to 13-4 as they beat the Nats 11-5. It was 5-2 in the game in the middle of the series. So I thought that was a big win. You did not want to get swept by the Nats after you swept them a week and a half ago. You did not want to get swept after what happened with their hot start. It would have been a bad taste in their mouth. Instead, they get to go to Atlanta, who's playing well, by the way, Bob, at 10-7. And they get to feel better about themselves with the win last night. Maybe, I don't know what the weather is in Atlanta. It seems to be cold all over the place. Maybe it's a little warmer. Maybe that'll help as well. But a big win, I thought, last night. And they stay atop the AL or the NL. Best record still in the NL at 13-4. Braves in your division, Bob, at 10-7. How about the Phillies at 10-7 as well?
They're doing well too.
You know, everybody was on top of our old friend Gabe Kapler, the new manager of the Phillies, in the first week. The Philly Fanatics were out for looking for blood as they thought he mismanaged some early games, but he has quieted that down, and they're 10-7. The Nationals we mentioned at 9-10, and the Marlins, who thumped the Yankees 9-1 in New York, Bob, at Yankee Stadium, are 5-12, bringing up the rear. We'll stay in the NL to do the standings.
What did you think about the firing today?
Yes, we'll get to the NL Central right now, as a matter of fact, and we'll mention the Cincinnati Big Red Machine. Cincinnati Reds fired their manager. I don't even have his name. I saw it in the paper, never heard of him.
Brian, I think his last name is.
Did you know that they even had a new manager? I didn't even know who this guy was.
He had a new manager, but he had a 3-15 record, and boom.
Ouch. He is fired. Did not last long. Was this his first year?
First year.
Wow. So Cincinnati not sitting tight there. They are going to fire their guy, and he is out at 3-15. The Buccos, the Pirates, 12-6 in first place in their division in the Central. Cardinals 10-7, but they were losing today big to the Cubs. So I don't have a final, but I think probably they're 10-8 because the Cubs look to be winning that game handily. Brewers at 10-9. Cubs, if they did hold on to win, are now 8-8. And in the NL West, it's the D-backs 12-5, the Rockies 11-9. Remember, Bob, these two were neck and neck all year last year for the wild card, and they both made it. But it's D-backs and Rockies. Dodgers 8-9, Giants 7-10, Padres 7-13. We only got about 3 minutes left. My Red Sox, Bob, best team in baseball, best start ever. Only one of, I think it's 5 teams to win 15 out of the first 17 games in the last, since 1905, I think it is. 15-2, Bob. They beat the Angels 11-0 and 9-0 in the first 2 games of this road trip out west. They took care of the Japanese sensation Osani, whatever his name is. He had blisters or something. He came out after the second inning. He was greeted by a leadoff home run by Mookie, who had 3 home runs in that game, Bob. 3 home runs. 3 home runs he had. They've won 6 in a row. The only 2 games they lost were that first game of the year when we were here and they blew the lead, unbelievably, 5-0 in the 8th inning. And the other game that he lost was the David Price game, where he had numbness in his hand in that first inning against the Yankees. So they're 15-2.
The Yankees, they're not doing too well. 8-8, and then Stanton has. I don't know why they even got him. He's down in the fourth spot of the batting order now.
Well, I mean, that's actually probably where he should be. Did they move him to fourth? Where's Didi hitting now?
Didi, I think, just moved back up to like second position or the third position.
Did they finally get the batting order correct? I mean, it should be Gardner, Didi, Judge, Stanton, Sanchez, and you go from there. But I have no idea why they weren't doing that to begin with. I mean, Didi himself tweeted it in the offseason. Am I still the cleanup hitter, Skip? When they made the trade for him, it's totally ridiculous. The Yankees are dumb at this point. But they get to take
the most strikeouts in baseball.
I know. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, the weather's been terrible. They rained out in Detroit for 3 games. Bad weather in New York against Miami. But the Red Sox look great. The Yankees look meddling, and they get to take on the Yankees are home against Toronto. Toronto's coming in at 12-5. So they're going to be facing a decent team. The Orioles, who lost at the Tigers today, are 5-13. Rays also 5-13. Central, it's Twins 8-5. Tribe 9-7. Tigers 6-9. White Sox 4-11. Kansas City Royals, Bob. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. 3-13 from the Royals. They won the World Series 2 years ago, right? Or was it 3 years ago against your Mets at this point? It was recent, though. We know that. Angels 13-5 after the 2 losses to the Red Sox. We'll see if the Red Sox can finish the sweep tonight. Houston 12-7, and Seattle 9-7. Oakland 9-10. So a competitive West right now, and Texas at 7-13. We're just about a minute left. The thing about my Red Sox, Bob, they're doing it with starting pitching. The ERA of the starters is in the 1s. They're doing it with defense. I believe they've only committed 1 error so far all year, and they've got a bench that's coming in and taking care of their opportunities when they're, asked upon, and the balanced offensive attack. So it looks really good. They've got 4 grand slams on the year, Bob. Unbelievable. So your Mets and my Red Sox doing good. We got about 30 seconds, Bob. You got anything else to add there?
Are we live next week?
I do believe we are live next week. Yes, we are, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
So we will welcome you back to your chair behind the camera, and we hope you have a great rest of your vacation. We hope the weather improves.
Back home to Danbury tomorrow, so.
Oh, you are back tomorrow. Okay, well, we'll see you when you get back. Have a safe trip back. Hopefully the weather on the ride. I think sun is on the way, even if it stays a little bit cold, so maybe it'll be a little bit nicer. All right, I think that's about it. We are out of here. We will see you next week. Thanks for calling in, Bob. Take it easy.